Welcome to eBikes Unplugged. On this episode, we're going to learn how to use online resources to better understand your state regulations regarding e-mountain bike usage, as well as how to use online resources to plan your next EMTB ride. We also take a quick look at climbing technical routes, and finally, we observe a little bit of trail etiquette. Okay, so for most people who are considering the purchase of an electric mountain bike, or EMTB for short, the question of, well, where can I ride it pops up, and that is a good question to ask. But the good news is that there are several new sources that have emerged to help answer that question, and we are going to take a look at some of those right now. So before getting started, what I'm looking at first is Oregon bicycle laws. That's my state. And I get to see here in Oregon that an electric assisted bicycle is considered a bicycle rather than a motor vehicle. Now, before we just jump on the trail and head out there, it's important to observe that this does not necessarily include EMTB usage on off-road trails. So for that, we're going to have to dig a little bit deeper. And so we're going to go to peopleforbikes.org, and People for Bikes is doing a really nice service to e-bike riders and EMTB riders. And on this page of their site, what they've got is e-bike regulations, and this map of the US shows how each state observes e-bikes. And what they're saying in Oregon is they are acceptable, regulated as a bicycle, and so forth, just what we read in the Oregon law. You will want to see how your state in particular observes e-bike regulations. Now, the important thing on this page is this note right here for electric mountain bike riders. And what this is saying is that this map represents how e-bikes are interpreted in each state's vehicle code, and where e-bikes are allowed to go on the road, bike lanes, bike paths, or other paved or hard surface bicycle infrastructure. The vehicle code does not apply to electric mountain bike access on motorized and non-motorized trails typically used for hiking, biking, and other single track or double track trail experiences. EMTB access on single track is different than access to paved and soft surface bike lanes and bike paths. EMTBs are not allowed everywhere traditional mountain bikes are, and on federal, state, county, and local trails, EMTB access varies significantly. So always consult with your local land manager for access questions. That's good advice. So peopleforbikes.org also has this handy e-mountain bike map. So we take a look at this and move around the western states, or let's take a look at the whole US for a moment. And we can see that they've included quite a few e-mountain bike routes and trails, which is really handy. So if we look at Oregon, there aren't as many here as I would like to see, but I do see that in my local area, I have at least this one here. So the Edison Lava Trail, 9.7 miles. So that's really handy piece of information and good to know. So we will come back to that in just a moment. But before we do that, one more site I think that is worth taking a look at is trailforks.com. And trailforks.com is a great resource for all types of mountain bike riding. And they do have a phone app that has a filter that includes e-mountain bike trails. Unfortunately, the desktop site does not have that same filter, or I haven't been able to find it. So right now, the phone app is a better source of information for the EMTB rider. This is just a screenshot from the phone, and it shows this filter right here, e-bikes allowed. That's the one that you'll want to take a look at if you're using the Trailforks app on your phone. So that's another potential handy piece of information. So if we go back to the mountain biking map, I see locally this Edison Lava Trail. I'm going to go over to Google Earth, and I just did this. So here it is right here. I did a search for Edison. This is what came up. And so zooming in on that, we can see that this area right here has a lot of potential, and I am going to go and take a look at this trail. If it is this one here, or they're a little bit difficult to see, but as we could see from the other maps, it was heading off to the west here. And that is definitely a trail that I'm going to want to go take a look at and see what I come up with. Google Earth is a great resource that I've used for a lot of research. And most of, a lot of the research that I've done for EMTB routes really hasn't come from these different websites. For example, this is the state of Oregon.gov OHV trail site. And here locally, it doesn't show any OHV trails. And I have ridden numerous OHV trails out in this area. So for whatever reason, they're not populating on this map. So this is actually not that good of a source. So really the online sources are only a start. What you do with it from here is really up to you as an individual to really get out there. Google Earth is a great resource to begin to see some of the bigger routes that motor vehicles are obviously driving on, and to see where you can take it from there. So that's really how I've done most of my scouting. It's trial and error, and ultimately you do start to come upon some real gems. All right, you guys, well, that is enough computer time for now. It is time to get out on the trail for the next segment of eBikes Unplugged. All right, you guys, so here I am at the exact spot that we identified for an EMTB ride on peopleforbikes.org. And I showed up here and I got really bummed out because, as you can see behind me there was one other car here. But no, in all seriousness, this is, in my experience, this is not that uncommon for a lot of these off-road vehicle areas that do allow EMTB riding. For whatever reason, all of the motorized vehicles tend to show up at the same time on the same day, and then the rest of the time they're not there. And for mountain bikers, they just don't really look at these areas as an option. Okay, inevitably when you're out riding a trail like this, you're gonna come to a little bit of a technical section, such as those roots back behind me. And the most important thing you do, and I'm talking about riding uphill right now and getting over these obstacles, is to always remember, never stop pedaling. So I tell all my students, whether it's a EMTB or a regular pedal bike, just never stop pedaling, because if you stop pedaling for a split second, you will stop delivering power to the rear wheel and the bike will immediately get hung up and stop. You'll put a foot down and then you'll be walking. So number one rule there, keep the power down, keep pedaling, keep motoring, you'll make it over it. There's a trail sign where I'm at, and you can see all these different symbols on this sign: hikers, bikes, horses, ATVs, motorcycles. So this is an exceptional trail, I have to say. I'm really impressed. Even with that sort of multi-use happening here, the condition of the trail is very good, and I'm just having a blast. With more people using our trails today than ever before, it's important to take a look at etiquette. Sometimes we'll look at e-bike and EMTB specific etiquette, but this piece goes for all mountain bike riders. Whether it's more people going after a PR on Strava or just more riders on trails in general, what we should do when two riders are approaching one another on a trail is a common issue. The main rule to follow is that on an incline, the climbing rider has the right of way. Besides the fact that it's much safer for the descending rider to slow down and stop rather than risk a collision, the climber is going slower and has a much harder time getting restarted. This rule is mainly for narrow single-track trails, but overall trail conditions need to be accounted for. On flat sections of trail, it's your discretion. One of the riders needs to take the initiative and provide the right of way. It doesn't hurt to be polite in these circumstances. Kind-hearted thank yous are always good to hear and give to others on the trail. There's also nothing wrong with pausing on a climb occasionally so a less experienced rider can keep rolling. On wider trails or double tracks, it's fine for both riders to keep going, but always be mindful about passing head-on with excessive speed or in really rough trail conditions. Keep in mind, we only covered bicycles in this segment. Bike riders should always yield to hikers and equestrians, and to yield means to allow someone to pass without hindrance. So give them some room. Finally, we should never forget that the trail is for everyone. Let's be nice to each other, have some respect, be ladies and gentlemen, show some class out on the trail. Everyone's just trying to have a great time. All right, that's it for this episode. A special thank you to peopleforbikes.org for helping me find that wonderful EMTB route. I had the perfect ride with the perfect bike. So stay tuned for the next episode, and thanks for watching.